Welcome to Wealth Bytes, the first and only podcast for tech professionals in Australia. These are my thoughts and views on how to make money and retire early, and by no means financial advice. And since you are here with me, welcome to my world. I will be discussing ideas and ideals that may not seem popular and sometimes provocative in nature. However, it is eye opening and will expand your horizons to make money differently. Last week, I was having a quick conversation with a couple who works in tech, both of them, which is very common these days. And within the first 5 minutes, I could already feel it. There is a little bit of a difference in how they look at money and how they look at spending money. It is not tension really in a dramatic way. There's no kind of a shouting or kind of fights or conflict, but just kind of there's pressure in the room that sits with when two good people want two different things. And both are thinking that they want to make sensible decisions. He was actually 50. He was very thoughtful and measured person. He's the kind of person who looks ahead, runs the numbers in his head, and worries about what could go wrong before anyone else even sees it coming. And that's really how his wife put it in words. She was really warm, open, full of life. She wasn't really careless, but she just kept coming back to one point. And the point is, what is the point of building a life if we never actually live it and enjoy it? And I sat with them thinking, this is it. This is the conversation so many couples are having, but almost never say this clearly. Because if you look at the things from the surface, it sounds like a money conversation. But it's really about, should we save more? Should we spend more? Should we take this trip or that trip? Should we fly business class or should we fly coach? Should we invest the bonus? Should we spend it? Should we, push a little bit harder or do the renovations, whatever that is? But that's not the conversation that was happening in the room. What was really happening was that he was scared of one kind of regret and she was scared of another. And here is where it gets really interesting in those conversations. Both of them were right. And that is the part most people really miss. Usually people or couples disagree about money. They assume one person is the responsible one and the other is an emotional one. And one is rational and one is impulsive. And one gets it, one doesn't. But that's not what I see in those conversations. What I see after more than 20 years working with tech professionals is something really different. I see two people trying to feel safe in a completely different way. And it's worth noting that this way is really formed through the experience they had themselves or through their parents. So if you have kind of a scarcity upbringing, this will form part of your financial or money decision making. If your upbringing was in kind of an abundance kind of lifestyle, then this will also form kind of your money experience. So if you miss this kind of background, you really miss the whole thing. And it can be a big tension within the couple's financial plan or life planning or how they spend money. So once you understand what's really driving it, the whole conversation will change. And in this case, what happened next shifted everything. But before I get to that, let me show you the trap that they were stuck in, because there's a good chance you might be in that too. When you don't have clarity, you default to extremes. And that is how the human being is really wired. And this is what the research is trying to tell us over and over in different ways, in different experience, in different kind of fields. And it's really of, the fight or flight mode. That's what we really know when we have uncertainty. When you feel uncertain, if you don't have enough information, there's the fight or fright. That's basically how we deal with things. And that's really the trap. You don't mean it, really. Nobody wakes up and says, let me make money harder than it needs to be, or let me make my relationship more tense, or let me turn every spending decision into a little emotional, battlefield or argument. And that's exactly what happens when there's no shared certainty. One person becomes kind of a protector and the other becomes the enjoyer. He wants to, or she wants to enjoy the life. And the protector says, we need to save more. We need to be careful. We don't know what retirement will cost. Everything is changing. Cost of living is high. We don't know what's ahead. What if we can't afford the rent or the mortgage? We should tighten things up now just in case. And then the enjoyer responds back. Look, life is happening now. We have worked hard for this. The kids are growing up. Our energy is here and now. We can't really postpone it. Our energy is about enjoying our life. And why are we acting like enjoyment is irresponsible? That is not fair. And then all of a sudden, both people will start defending their side. One starts sounding more conservative than they really are, and the other starts sounding more relaxed than they are really. And that is basically defending themselves. And suddenly, the gap becomes wider and wider. But what nobody sees coming is neither person is actually fighting for money. They're fighting for relief. That's it, really. One wants relief from future fear, the other wants relief from present deprivation. And that's why these conversations get so emotionally loaded. Because underneath those kind of numbers and spreadsheets and all these arguments, the budgets, the super contributions, and the investments accounts, and all this sort of stuff, there's something much more human going on. And there is fear. There's also hope. And there's identity. We attach ourselves to how we look about money or think about money. And there's the question nobody asks out loud really. Are we going to be okay? If you can answer that question when it enters the room, everything will be heavier. This isn't a money problem. It's an uncertainty problem. That was what was driving the conversation. No clear retirement number, no real idea if they were on track, no proper structure tying today's choices to tomorrow's outcome. So the brain always does. When it doesn't have certainty, it creates its own survival strategy. Save everything just in case. Fear of the future makes you hold on to things. And fear of missing out also makes you let go. So that line lands hard because it is true. And it explains so much about what you're going to think about when it comes to money. It explains why the other partner feels frustrated, even when on paper things should look great. It explains also why smart, capable, high income tech professionals can still feel lost around money, especially in tech. So, here is something I see all the time with senior professionals in Australia. They have very good salary, they have very good RSU and bonuses, but they also have big tax bills. Strong earning years, yes, but lots of financial potential that is untapped because not always a lot of clarity. So from the outside, people assume that they must have it sorted, but inside the house, different story. So inside the house, they're asking the same questions everyone else is asking. Can we afford this? Can we put our kids to private school? Can we do more or should we do more? Are we behind? Are we okay? Are we wasting time? Can I get a better offer somewhere else? Are we wasting money? Am I paying too much tax? Is there a better way to, optimize my tax? And without any clarity, every decision feels very loaded like a minefield. Even a holiday becomes a referendum on your future. Do we go? Do we don't go? Even a nice dinner can carry some guilt after spending, a few $100 on it. Investing can feel stressful because you're not fully sure what you're trying to achieve and what the market is trying to telling you. And this is where people usually make one of two mistakes. The first mistake is they save everything. And I've worked with a lot of clients that have been doing that for years and they actually come and regret it because they thought that all they have to do is just put money in the offset account and then they will be sorted. And then they realize, oh, I missed a lot. Now, sounds responsible, right? It is sensible. Put money in the offset account to save money. And to be fair, it often comes from a good place, right? From a good intention. But there's a very big hidden cost in that. You delay life. You keep saying later, later, later. Later we'll travel. Later we'll slow down. Later we'll enjoy more. And later we'll make a lot of memories. And later sounds very responsible and logical until one day you realize later becomes your whole personality. Everything is postponed. So that is the real danger on you. You build wealth, but you starve the present. You become so focused on protecting tomorrow that you forget tomorrow is actually part of life too. And there's a bit of an uncomfortable truth about that you don't get rewarded for delaying your life longer than necessary. There's no trophy for that. No one will say, good job, right? No one will tap you on the shoulder at 72 and says, congratulations, you're extra cautious in your 50s. And sometimes the cost is really invisible at first. It is missed memories, delayed joys, years that looked productive but didn't feel alive. And then one day, very quietly, regret walks in. Not because you've built wealth or you made money, but because you waited too long to let yourself live. And now the mistake or the other mistake that we always see happening is you swing too far the other way. And that's another problem. So you say, life is short, let's enjoy it, we'll work it out later, we earn well, we'll be fine, everything is sorted. And again, that sounds understandable. You're earning a lot of money, so it even sounds inspiring for a while as well. Life is life until, again, later arrives, but it comes in a different form. It is expensive because you underplanned for too long. You risked running out and you stay dependent on income longer than you want. So you start losing flexibility. And I think flexibility at the moment in this age and time is one of the most underrated forms of wealth. There is ability to step back, the ability to pick the job that you want or the project you're passionate about, and to even change careers. I have a client who wants to work in Bunnings, for argument's sake, and that's very very good of him to know exactly what he wants to do once he have the financial means to support that. Forget about the emotions for a second. Forget who's right, and let's work out what your future actually look like. Picture me your day in 5 years, in 10 years in retirement. Let me talk with you about what you actually need, not what the social media is telling you, not what your neighbor is saying, not what your fear is saying, and also what not your guilt is saying. I want you really to explain to me, picture for me, what does your life look like? And that is the question that changed everything for them, because suddenly they weren't defending positions anymore. They were building clarity. They wanted an understanding of what the future looks like on the short, medium, and long term for both of them, from both perspectives. So we started to, draft it, what retirement would actually look like for them, how they wanted to live. They woke up in the morning, they made coffee. Now, what sort of conversations are they doing? What kind of lifestyle they cared about really at that time? What is the level of comfort they wanted? The travel, the freedom, the breathing room. Sort of money are they spending on their grandchildren or gifting their grandchildren? And also, we spoke about the near future. Now, what sort of activities do you want to go to in the next 5 years? Where do you want to travel? How much are you going to spend? All this sort of stuff. We put that all into the mix and we just provided clarity on how much they need per annum in order to maintain this lifestyle in retirement and in the short term. So they needed 150 grand in retirement to live the life they wanted in today's money, obviously, because inflation will eat everything. Now, the point is not the number, absolutely not the number, but the point is, how can you build a number, right? And this number, once it becomes real, the emotion starts to loosen its grip on the situation, because now we had something concrete. Now we can talk about it. We weren't operating from a guesswork or from emotion or from past experience on money. We're just operating from clarity. And this is the part what really surprised them. Nothing magical happened to their finances that day. Their income didn't increase. Their assets didn't suddenly double. No one handed them a better job. But what's really important that it happened is that there's no stress level. Stress is gone because uncertainty had been replaced with structure, the power of real plan. And that is the real power, really. So I will break it down simply for you, the framework, in the simplest way, possible. So step one, you need to get the number right. And that's always what I talk about. Not a guess, not a feeling, not a opinion from a neighbor or friend. Get your number right. And most people don't actually know what the number is. They just guess and hope, not really a strategy, especially in today's world. You need to know what your future will cost you. What kind of retirement are you aiming for? What sort of travel? At what age? With what lifestyle? With what sort of spending? What are you accounting for? Is it tax, inflation, super, investments, debt, family commitments? A lot of things are in the mix and people usually miss most of them. Because until the target is clear, everything else is just movement without any direction. It's like trying to get to the, Sydney Opera House with no address, no map, and just a vague sense that you should head towards the water. You might eventually get somewhere. It might be somewhere interesting too, but it's not a plan. Number two in the steps, build a plan to fund it. So build the plan to fund it. Super, investment, different structures, all working together. This is where the strategy really matters, especially for high income tech professionals, because your finances as a tech professional aren't that simple. You've got a salary, bonuses, RSU, a mortgage, kids, school fees, probably private school fees, maybe aging parents, maybe, parents that you want to support financially, and also tax issues you haven't fully optimized. So a solid income is a good feeling, but there should be more happening to you. And that is common feeling that I get from our clients. The answer usually isn't another random investment. It is integration. Each piece of your financial life needs a job. Super has its own job. Personal investments have a job. Cash has a job. Debt has a specific job. Tax planning has a job. When those pieces aren't coordinated, money feels busy. You're pulling in different directions. When they are coordinated, however, money feels with purpose. And it then becomes, step three appear by itself, which is spending the rest properly, right? Now, this is where people lean in and start listening. Okay, I'm going to spend money. Hey, you're going to spend money. That's the whole point because nobody talks about this enough. Spend the rest properly, not randomly, not emotionally, not with guilt, with confidence because you have a plan in place. You understand exactly what's going to happen. And that's the people are really missing. And also they are craving. They are craving permission to spend. They are craving permission to live the life they want to build. The ability to say yes without the little voice in their head saying, should I be doing this? Once the future is handled, today becomes really easy. It's not just a nice line, it just actually happens with clients. And this is where the couple's story again gets really interesting because when I showed them the numbers, something shifted in a way neither of them expected. First, he relaxed because now he doesn't have to worry about the future, he doesn't have to go into this argument. And then he exhaled like he'd been mentally carrying his responsibility for years, trying to protect the future he couldn't quite see clearly. And suddenly he realized we're actually going to be okay. That was a relief for him. And that's a powerful moment because the protector in the relationship often looks controlling from the outside. But that's not usually what's going on. Usually they are tired. Usually they are carrying invisible pressure. Usually, they're trying to hold the future together with their loved ones through discipline because they don't have certainty. All they have now is protection. So once he had that certainty, he softened and also she relaxed because now it's not a topic to argue about. And this is the part that almost always gets overlooked. She didn't relax because someone gave her permission, like a child, asking for pocket money or something. She relaxed because the guilt disappeared. And that is different, very different. She could now see that enjoying life wasn't sabotaging the future as she was imagining because she was guilty about her, emotional needs. It wasn't reckless or irresponsible. It just fits the plan. So when enjoyment fits the plan, it feels completely different. Now you have a plan that stopping you from feeling like a disobedient or you're not aligned or you're arguing with your partner. It's just the moment that nothing changed in their income, nothing changed in their assets. Only one thing changed: clarity. And that's what you want to achieve, just clarity. And clarity changed everything for them. And that's why I say this all the time. A financial plan does not restrict your life. Literally, saving on coffee $5 every day is not a financial plan. It, the plan will give you a permission to live it, to buy this coffee, to buy this cake, to go on this travel or holiday. It's not someday. It is properly being done now. And this is bigger than just one couple. I see versions of this story all the time with people from different ages I work with. Smart tech professionals, high earners, they are in tech, incredibly capable in their career, but overwhelmed when it comes to translating income into actual freedom. Because earning well and feeling clear are not the same thing. You can be brilliant at work and still feel stuck at home around money. And that is very, very common. You can be earning hundreds of thousands and still feel unsure. That doesn't mean you failed. It just means that nobody has helped you connect the dots properly. So, what a real plan does for you, it connects the dots. It turns abstract fear into concrete numbers, and it turns emotional debate into shared direction. You will have this in kind of a teamwork. And honestly, that's the part I love the most because I'm not just looking at investment returns or contribution caps or structures in isolation. I'm looking at what does these things do for a person's life. And that's what I enjoy about my role. Do they reduce stress? Do they improve choice? Do they create freedom? And do they help people get back on the same page? That really matters because money is never just money. It's emotions wearing numbers. It's identity, really. And it's all the things we believe about safety, success, and freedom hidden inside some financial decisions. So if you feel like you and your partner are on different pages financially, let me say something that might take the pressure a little bit off. You do not need to fix each other. You can't. No one fixed the other. You need just clarity. That's it. You don't need a winner and a loser. You don't need to, one person to become more disciplined and the other become less emotional. You need just a framework that is strong enough to hold both people concerns at the same time and connect them together. So your tomorrow is protected, your today is respected, and the balance. That is the real answer. You get the balance emotionally, mentally, and financially. Not to save for later, not to live now, but a plan that allows both for you. Because the whole point of money is not just to accumulate it. The point is to use it well, right? To create options for you, your family, your kids, reduce stress, buy things that you want, support the life that you actually want. You must have a picture of the life that you really, really want to give you the confidence to stop second guessing every decision. And when that happens, something really beautiful starts to take place. Couples stop fighting and arguing over transactions of money. They start talking about values. They talk about legacy and start to, react with or move with intention and stop reacting with fear. They stop treating every decision like a threat. They start making choices like a team. And that changes much more than the bank account. It changes the energy of the home. And I've seen it many times. So, the question I would like to leave you with, are you really arguing about money? Or are you both just trying to feel safe without a clear map? Because once you have the map, the whole conversation will change. And that's why this episode matters a lot. Because maybe the issue in your life is not that you need to save more. Maybe it's not that you need to spend more either. Maybe you just need to know what enough looks like. And that's a very, very simple, short, but very, very complex question. What enough looks like? Maybe you need to know your number. Maybe you need a structure. Maybe you need to stop guessing. And because guessing is really exhausting. Clarity is freedom. And once you have clarity, you stop living at the extremes. You stop acting there's no future. You stop saving like there's no present. You start building a life where both opinion or both points of view about life can exist. A life where wealth is really growing and memories are being made at the same time. And retirement is being funded in the background. And, today feels lived and future feels safe. And that's the goal. So if that is something you've been thinking about, it is time for you to start thinking how to get a financial plan. Maybe you can reach out to myself or any other financial planner that you think is relevant to your circumstances. Now, that is the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for spending this time of your day listening to me or watching me. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, please reach out to mo@mywealthchoice.com.au. Thank you.